Hey everybody, this is my assignment 3 tutorial video on presentations with respect to metacognitive load. 3 things to keep in mind whenever you design a presentation for a lesson is why, who, and what. That is to say, why is the information you are presenting important to the learners, who the learners are, and what the best way to deliver the information is. In terms of why it's important, it establishes well, for lack of a better term, importance. It helps the learners key in on what that relationship has to do with them. Who the learners are will help you key into the correct word phrasing and choices of phrase and wording of things, making it not too jargony or not too simplistic. And what's the best way to deliver the information could have an effect on a lot of the design principles that you choose to use in order to best convey the information. And I have a number of examples and non-examples of that as we move along. One thing to pay respect to when designing a presentation, especially using hypertext and hypermedia, is the metacognitive load. The best way to pay respect, I find, to metacognitive load is following the 177 rule. This is very, very simple. It just says that per every slide, if you use a PowerPoint slide, there should be one main idea per slide, a maximum of 7 lines of text per slide, and a maximum of 7 words per line. So on the bottom left, I have a slide that does not follow the metacognitive, it does not follow the 177 rule on metacognitive load. It starts out with 2 subjects, kind of defining metacognitive load and who did it, and giving a brief history, and then giving details about it. It violates that there are more than 7 bullet points on the slide, and many of these bullet points have more than 7 words in them. And then I reduced that down to the 177 rule, and up on the upper left, that's what came out. Basically a very basic idea of what metacognitive load is, why it's important, and then how to maximize that knowledge and apply that knowledge to a presentation. One way of emphasizing what's important is eliminating clutter, which makes communication as easy and clear for the viewer as possible. This is the same graph, and it's the same data in each graph, but you can see clearly from the right that without that background information and the 3D and the whole thing, that 5,000 bikes sold in 2012 is the most important. Whereas this, it's the one on the left, is not as important. You could also use proximity to ensure that you relate items, that related items are grouped together. This will also help the how best to present information, right? The one on the left, same information, but it's hard to know what the point is because all of this is kind of spread out. On the right, same information. I'm clearly comparing Japan and the United States, and I'm pointing out that there's a 10-time difference in the obesity rate from the United States to Japan. Use of repetition throughout a presentation also helps emphasize key points and helps the learner make clear distinctions of what is being learned, why it's important to them, and what the key points are. Here's a presentation on how to thin down Japan, mentioning how to thin down like the Japanese, mentioning the same point about eating 80% of the way till you're full, over and over and over again, in pictures, words, graphics, etc. It's also important to remember that people remember visuals better than bullet points. Here's the same information, again in 2 separate slides, but the main idea of the left, design, story, sympathy, empathy, play, and meaning, is more easily discerned out from this slide because the use of the pictures allows for the differentiations of the terms to be more meaningful, as well as allows for the main ideas, these 6 aptitudes, to be drawn out better than just kind of lost in these white words and bullet points. Contrast is also very, very important for disseminating key messages and making strong differences. If you don't have contrast in your graphs or your images or your tests, it makes it hard to decipher any piece of information. The left is an example of a slide with very, very low contrast. The right is a slide where the key point is contrasted out. That South Korea is 89% of the mobile phone internet connectivity rate. And it's far above the United States, France, UK, and China, and only behind Japan. Last but not least, it's important to remember that you can manipulate empty space to give a greater organization, clarity, and interest to any one slide, drawing the learners in and focusing them in on what is important. In the upper left, you have a poorly designed slide, very low contrast, kind of hard to see all those numbers and what I'm pointing out. On the left, you have a slide that utilizes a lot of empty space, clearly draws out North America from a distinction from the rest. However, it doesn't necessarily, that's a lot of empty space that can be maximized by the idea of organic production by the introduction of the graphic in the lower left. The IST standards I felt best suit this presentation on drawing out metacognitive load and deciphering how to best depict metacognitive load for hypertext and hypermedia are the Standards for Educators 2.5a and 2.5b. These state that not only will the applying design principles with respect to metacognitive load enhance and adapt and personalize learning experiences that foster independent learning and accommodate learner differences and needs. These design principles will allow the use of digital tools and resources to maximize active and deep learning through simplifying the main points and not overloading the learner. I did get a lot of these information on designing presentation slides with respect to metacognitive load and specifically upon with respect to what is the best way of conveying information from Reynolds Garr book, Presentation Zen. I personally love this book. I think every teacher and everyone should read it because I think it states very simply and very clearly what the how you can implement purposeful design in giving a presentation to emphasize main points and draw away from learner distraction. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. Smash that subscribe button and please like, rate, and reply.